Max value accumulation is one application of the accumulation pattern. With max value accumulation, we're using the accumulation pattern to find the largest something, or the smallest something, or the item with the most something, etc. And the approach that we'll take is to keep track of the largest item so far. So remember that this is the general accumulation pattern. We initialize an accumulator variable, iterate through the items in a sequence, and update the accumulator variable every time. In the end, our accumulator variable has our result. So in the max value accumulation pattern, we're going to specifically initialize our accumulator variable to represent the largest thing that we've seen so far, and we'll typically start it out with the first item. Then we still iterate through all of the items in the sequence, and then we update the accumulator variable every time by saying if we find something larger than the largest value so far, then set the largest value so far to that item. And in the end, the accumulator variable has our result, which is it's the largest item in our sequence. So suppose that the problem we're trying to solve is that we want to assign the largest item in this list L to the variable largest. And the approach that we're going to take is to store the largest value that we've seen so far into largest, and we'll start just by saying that largest is the first item. Then we're going to loop through all of the items in our list, and for every item, we say that if that item is larger than our largest so far, then the largest so far should be that item. And we do that by comparing item with largest. So in this example, if we just walk through, then largest starts out as L sub 0, which is going to be 10. And then the first time we run this for loop, item is 10. 10 is not greater than largest, and so largest stays at 10. Then the second time we run it with 2. 2 is not greater than 10, so we stick with 10. The third time we run it, item is 30, and 30 is greater than 10, so we reassign largest to be item. So I'm going to cross off this 10 and write 30. The fourth time we run it, then item is going to be 25. 25 is not greater than 30. And then finally, when we run it with the last item, 50, then 50 is greater than 30, so we reassign largest to be item, and we end up with 50. And by the time our for loop is done, largest is going to be 50. Now, if we want to find the longest word in a list of words, so suppose this is a list of words and we want to find the longest, then we follow a similar pattern. We're going to keep track of the longest word that we've seen so far, and we'll just start it out as the first word. Then we're going to loop over our list of words, except now instead of comparing the item itself, we're going to compare the length of the word with the length of the longest word that we've seen so far. And if the current word is longer, then we're going to update the longest word so far. So in this example, longest starts out as this. Then we check it with is, it stays as this. Then we check it with another, and we see another is longer, so it gets reassigned to another. And then we see that category is longer, so we reassign this to category. And by the time that this for loop is done running, then longest is equal to category. Let's walk through another example and find the key in the dictionary freak that has the lowest value. So first, we'll get a list of keys, and we're going to keep track of the smallest so far, starting with the first key arbitrarily. And again, we'll loop through every key, and if that key is associated with a lower value, we'll replace smallest with that key. So we check if that key has a lower value by comparing the value associated with that key with the value associated with the smallest key that we've seen so far. And again, by the time this loop is done running, then smallest is going to be the key associated with the smallest value, in this case, key 2. So max value accumulation is a subset of the accumulation pattern that's useful for finding the largest or smallest or most something. And the strategy that we take with max value accumulation is to keep track of the largest item that we've seen so far and loop over all of the items, and if we find an item that's larger, then we set the largest that we've seen so far to that item.